I have a little bit of deja vu. I served in the state legislature, and even before that, I followed the arguments about voter ID. And the clarion call from the Democrats was this is going to suppress turnout, that it's going to limit people from exercising their right to vote, that it was going to have disastrous effects on South Carolina voting, and it has done everything but that. In fact, turnout is much better now with voter ID in South Carolina and in other states. And so the arguments against common sense things that, quite frankly, the American people like, I mean, you asked, the SAVE Act polls incredibly well, not only amongst Republicans, but amongst Democrats and independents. Really all parts of our country support this, except when you cross the Potomac into Washington, D.C., and you hear the ranking member say that it's going to have, one of the myths is that it was going to hurt voters because they would have to provide documents. And the reality is, according to the bill, for applicants without supporting documentation of citizenship, the SAVE Act permits state officials to check a variety of state and federal databases. Another myth was that it would somehow delay their registration, but the bill text is pretty clear as well, that they would be able to do that within 24 hours of accepting that application. And so, again, I just go back and fundamentally reject, because in the plain language of the text itself, it does the exact opposite of what the ranking member was referring to. And so, Ms. Mitchell, I want to go to you because in your testimony, and I really want to explore this, there was a DOJ order from President Biden, Executive Order 14019. A whistleblower came forward. You were talking with them and working with them on a report. Talk to us about what that executive order was, what it did, and the contents of your findings, just briefly.
Well, the executive order is word for word the executive order that Bill Clinton issued after the National Voter Registration Act was enacted by Congress in 1993. The difference is Congress did not take any action to authorize federal agencies to spend federal tax dollars and federal employees' time and federal resources to register people to vote. There's no congressional authority for it, and the chief executive has no authority to order anything with regard to voter registration. So the fact is that it is an order that's based on the NVRA. It orders every federal agency to develop a plan. That plan was supposed to be submitted to the White House by September of 2021, and it was to say how this agency planned to implement and conduct voter registration. And more problematic to me are the voter education materials, which is a euphemism in Democrat voter parlance for get out the vote. I don't want my federal tax dollars being spent to turn out voters, because I know the voters that they're going to turn out. And I don't think that they're treating all citizens equally. They're treating certain populations differently with our tax dollars.
And I would echo
think
that,
it's legal.
Ms. Mitchell, I mean, particularly from non-citizen prisoners, right? But that's kind of where at least the U.S. Marshals and the DOJ were going with this. Is that correct?
And in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and that there's no safeguard in the executive order saying, now be certain that you follow state law and that you don't register felons to vote, and be certain that you follow federal law and you're not registering non-citizens to vote. You don't have to be a citizen to go into get food stamps or other kinds of benefits. You don't have to be a citizen, but these employees are ordered to nonetheless register them to vote.
All right, equally troubling. I think you, when you look at the legal framework of this, an illegal alien, by registering, say, with some social services, is given an application possibly to vote. And it might be a mistake, but regardless, they are given that option based on this executive order. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly right, sir.
And so it's pretty easy to get added to the voter rolls, but it is nearly impossible to get removed.
That's exactly right.
Isn't that the conundrum that we find ourselves in?
That is exactly right.
And isn't that what the SAVE Act would protect and prohibit and fight against, is give states that option to remove non-citizens from their voting rolls?
That's right, and to keep them from getting on the rolls in the first place.
And why, Ms. Mitchell, then, is it so hard to understand that, or so problematic for my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to think that that was actually a pretty decent policy that non-citizens should not be voting in United States elections?
Because they don't agree with that premise. They want non-citizens to be counted for all purposes. They want non-citizens to be voting. The state of Vermont, controlled by Democrats, has now extended that right to all non-citizens in the state. San Francisco, New York, the District of Columbia. The Democrats have voted to, we see the pattern. They vote for non-citizens. They vote against anything that would keep non-citizens from being recognized as an important and critical part of our political system.
So they say one thing and do another. Sounds like Washington, D.C. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell.